Welcome to episode 3 of Nice One, Cyril. It's the podcast for long-suffering Spurs fans who know that hope isn't a strategy, and yet hope is the best we've got. I'm Simon Lipson, and joining me today are the ever-wise Kevin Acott, the legendary doyen of all things Spurs, Julie Welch, and fresh-faced pod newbie actor Lee Brown. This week, should we just file the Bournemouth game under bollocks and move on? No, of course not. We're going to relive the pain in exquisite detail. Then we'll talk about Xavi Simons, something like that. Is he the next Modric? Is he the next NDombele? Plus, we'll talk about stuff, because we've got the transfer deadline looming. It's as we speak, and we'll see if Daniel Levy has any plans to do anything. I mean, apart from Kudus, Palhinha, Simons, Tel, Danso, Takai and Muani, what's he done this window? I'll be sharing my painful memories of Spurs' 23 months at Wembley. It felt longer, didn't it? Kevin will tell us about the scarf incident. That's right, the scarf incident. I think we've got some stuff from Lee about the scourge that is ITK, and Julie will talk about the Spurs Academy graduates down the years. We can count them on the fingers of one finger, more or less. We'll pay tribute to the great Cyril Knowles, the man we're named after, of course, and we'll ask the big question ahead of the international break. Do we give a shit about England? So, strap in, Spurs fans. It's Nice One, Cyril. Nice one, Cyril. Okay, well, look, welcome, everybody, to a Nice One, Cyril. This is episode 3. With me today, as mentioned before, we've got Julie Welch, we've got Kevin Acott, Lee Brown has joined us for the first time on the pod, and I'm Simon Lipson. Now, why don't we get this Bournemouth debacle out the way? Julie, what happened?
Oh, it was just like the old days, wasn't it? Last season, you know. Ship an early goal and that's it. And they were all over us and, you know, they were too fast for us. And I just kept thinking, why couldn't we have got that bloody Semenyo? And that was it, really. And I just turned off, basically, because I knew what was going to happen. You know, the honeymoon is over.
Yeah, well, he roasted Porro, who had one of his worst games for Spurs for a long time. Kev, we had a little chat post-match, didn't we? Tactics. Did Thomas Frank screw up his tactic? Because it seems to me that Iraola got the better of him on this occasion.
I think he did. I think the blame does lie with Frank. I think he started with exactly the same team as he started with against City, and Bournemouth, when they come to us, are a very different team to Man City away. And I think once that first goal went in, it never looked like we were going to get anything back, and
no.
the was weak as well. I think we were exposed there when you sort of thinking who's gonna come on. Solanke was injured anyway. Richarlison was poor as well. Porro was poor. No one was particularly good at all. I think Frank got it wrong. I sort of feel like I've moved on though. This might just my Spurs deny tactics a bit too much.
You have to, Kev, because otherwise it would kill us. We talked about Richarlison there. He was bullied, wasn't he? Then he got kind of a bit angry and petulant and was like, I'm not playing anymore. I've had enough of this being bullied by these massive centre halves. And I wonder, Lee, do you feel like, as I do, that there was an issue here with selection? Because I assumed the Palhinha-Bentancur axis was the sort of thing we used when we were going to be under the cosh, you know, Liverpool, Man City, one of those sorts of teams, and that when we're at home to Bournemouth, who are fucking brilliant, by the way, they were brilliant, and that needs to be acknowledged. But against a Bournemouth, perhaps we ought to have been a little bit more forward-thinking, thrown in Bergvall and maybe Gray, I don't know, even Audebert. What's your thinking?
Can I be the first to say Frank out? No, tongue is firmly in my cheek there. I'll just sort of preface all of that by just saying, yeah, I'm pretty sanguine about it all, to be quite fair. I was a bit fed up watching the game. You could see it's like one of those performances that we're used to, you know, after the first 10 minutes, we're like, oh, okay, I know, I've seen this show before. And, but Yeah, I think you're right, and it did tell like later on in the game when he did bring on those players, like brought on Bergvall, and we just started to look better. We passed better, we were a bit more lively, and I think Kevin's right. Really, that wasn't really the right, not only right tactics but right selection. But to his credit, I will give him that. We did look a lot better later on when he was proactive and changed that. You know, maybe another 10 minutes or so, we might have, got back into that. I would have thought we felt like we were on the verge of it.
Yeah. We had a very, very good 7 minutes. It was the other 93, so 83, I should say. Well, that's more like 93 once you add in overtime. We didn't compete, and I just felt that, I don't know if it was an attitudinal issue or whether we were just outthought and outplayed. And as I say, Bournemouth were incredibly good. We couldn't get past the bloody block, and then when we went long, poor old Rishi couldn't hold the thing up. So, bit of a shame. All right, well, look, as far as I'm concerned, it's water under the bridge. We are in 4th place, so I say we are Champions League contenders. Now, let's move on a little bit. It's been an exciting time, hasn't it, for transfers. Julie, Xavi Simons, can we get that clarified, first of all?
I'm going for Simons, definitely.
Okay.
Don't know a lot about him. I mean, is he a 9? Is he a 10? Is he a 9.5? He looks the part, doesn't he? I don't think he's going to be another Ndombele. For a start, he's not fat. Definitely didn't eat all the pies. I never, ever watch reels because you never get any real impression, or there's a pun, you never really get an impression of what they're really like. I just hope he's going to be some good and not a complete dud. I think that's all we can hope. I don't think he was first choice, was he?
He wasn't. I mean, although apparently he was mentioned earlier on in the window. I mean, Kev, we're experts, aren't we? Because we've seen 7 minutes and 32 seconds of him on YouTube, and therefore we can testify to the fact that he's very quick, he's technical, 2 good feet, scores goals, pass the ball. Are you expecting him to sort of be a kind of quasi 10, or is he going to move out left? Because we haven't really bought that left winger that Gary of Chelmsford on my timeline on X insists we should have had. What's your thinking?
I mean, I get the impression he could do either, and it sort of depends on, do we pick anyone else up in the next hour as to where he plays. I think I feel genuinely excited about him. I think everything I've seen about him and seen of him, he looks great. I mean, I know, we all know what can happen with those sort of players. But yeah, I think he could really make a difference. And that creativity, which even with Maddison last year, there were times where he brought that real creativity. There were times where he didn't. And we've been missing that for years, really. And so I'm sort of pinning all my hopes on this guy.
I was struck by how slim, how diminutive he is in civvies when he came on the pitch to be introduced to the fans. He just looked like the slip of a thing. But then I think a lot of footballers surprise you with how, and athletes generally, with how little they look in real life.
Jurgen Klinsmann is very, very tiny. He's, when you think of how, he just seemed enormous on the pitch. But when I actually sort of got to meet him, I thought, oh, you're just a little guy. I mean, it's, that is a sort of particular footballer look, and particularly for a guy who, sort of plays more around the middle than, jumping around in the penalty box where the giants are.
Well, judging by YouTube, he looks actually quite strong, quite sort of a bit like Kudus, but having that low centre of gravity, turns quickly and so on. Also today, we hear that Spurs have taken Randall Kolo Muani, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, French international, missed an open goal to win the World Cup. He's our kind of guy, isn't he?
Oh, yes. Well, especially if he gets injured in the first few weeks, he will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting us to sign Moana rather than Moani, but...
No, Moani's much better than Moana. Come on, what's the matter with you?
I think it looks like he could fit 2 roles. I believe he's not only a forward, like as a striker, but he also can play off the left as well. So it probably makes sense from that point of view. And it's only, it doesn't look like it's an obligation or even an option to buy. It's a year loan, which suggests to me Harry Kane is obviously coming back next season.
Obviously, yeah. That goes without saying. Yeah, so that will be nice, and we'll have a few goals out of him before he retires. We've also, it looks like, well, I don't know actually, because the last I saw, it looked like Mana Solomon was going and then wasn't going to Leeds on loan. Is that right? And so this will sound very stupid when people actually listen to this, because he's probably gone to Peru or somewhere like that in the meantime. And Julie, he's been a huge success for us, hasn't he, Brian Hill? He's off to Girona.
Yes, our very fifth Beatle. Yeah, for something like 4.5 pence and £3.75 add-ons, something like that. And you just think, what was all that about? I mean, they bought him, and then they just spent the whole time trying to get rid of him. Poor guy.
Yeah, Lee, you've got a thought about Brian Hill?
Yeah, I think he seems to be like one of those typical punts that we've made in the past, and we occasionally do, where we sort of think, well, everyone says he's good, and we'll go for that one. And we've had a few of those, haven't we, where we just sort of tried our luck and see if they would come good, but invariably they don't. But I just wanted to, if I may, sort of jump back to, you were talking about Simons, whatever you want to call him. I think he'll be really good for us, but he might take a little bit of time to settle in, like Modric did. You compare him to Modric, and I think that might be a decent comparison, because with our midfield at the moment, they don't look like they could pass wind, but at least he does. He looks like he could, take on players, and he's got an eye for a pass. I think give him a little bit of time, which of course we're famous for allowing our players time, aren't we? Really, we don't jump to any kind of conclusions about them whatsoever.
Yeah,
read Kulusevski.
Yeah.
But, I think he will be an excellent addition to the squad. And if you've seen the reels, as you were saying, he's really sharp in that passing and understands, how to link up play. So I've got high hopes.
Yeah, I think he'll get half an hour on Twitter before Gary Chelmsford destroys him. So that'll be pretty good.
That's not bad,
the thing
actually.
I will say this about him, comparing him to Modric. When Modric first came to us and started playing for us, I thought, he's like a little girl. I don't mean that in a sexist way. Just he's got the frailty and the sort of the kind of that ability to, I don't know, just float around and get bashed around, and it didn't look like anything to me. Whereas I think Simons is a bit sort of tougher. It's a bit more muscular. There's a bit more oomph and sinew about him. Kev, is that just me hoping for the best?
Well, as you were talking about Modric there, Modric is one of those players who I never quite saw in the same way as it seemed like everyone else did. He was a good player. He was never a great player, I don't think, for us. And some of that might have been that sort of flimsiness and vulnerability, which actually, as he got older and moved on from us, I think he found ways to sort of get round that in a way. And maybe we just weren't quite the right club or quite the right team for him. So you could see potential in him, and he did some great things, but it wasn't until he left us that he started really showing what he was made of, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I have to say I wasn't blown away by Modric at any particular time. I never thought of him as one of our greats or one of our standouts. He was very good when he was on his, game. But I don't know, Julie, you look like you're having apoplexy.
I think this is sacrilege. I think he was one of the greatest players for Spurs ever. If it hadn't been for him, I don't think even Bale would have been as good as he turned out to be. I can't believe I'm hearing this. I think, Modric was and is a wonderful, wonderful player, just creative, mysterious, reminded me a bit of the great John White, but something more. Yeah, what a player. I can't believe I'm actually hearing people talking down. I may have to leave the room.
There is dissension and fractiousness among the otherwise sedate and aged members of the crew tonight. Lee, Kevin and I being unfair, or?
I think so. I think you're being a pair of bastards, to be honest. And
okay,
Julie, I think he's spot on.
Them's fighting words. Yeah, go on.
No, I think he was, once he'd sort of really come to grips with the Premier League, he is the sort of player we haven't had for such a long time. Metronomic, I think, is the word. Everything went through him. He made it look so simple. And I can understand why, I suppose, people didn't, think he was as good as he actually was. But, we've never had a player like him since. Everything that made us function and tick went through him. And I think, I mean, obviously he went on to levels and levels above when he went to Real Madrid. But, I'm hoping that Simons could be that sort of player where everything goes through him.
We shall see. Look, this is exciting stuff, I think. I mean, we've got, and I'm looking forward to seeing Moana, whatever the hell his name is, do his thing, because he looks like a very rangy, powerful player, decent with the ball at his feet, and he scores a few goals. So we could do worse. Yes, good shout. Very good shout. I do want to come back to this. We mentioned this in the pod last week, Lee. Let me take your sounding from you on this. It's Ree Brennan Johnson, who strikes me now as the vulnerable character here with Simons and Moana, whoever coming in, because, we seem to have a lot of cover out left, even though we haven't bought perhaps the sort of that gold-plated left winger. But Brennan, it was obvious again against Bournemouth, although we could criticise everybody, to be fair, but he's not contributing a great deal beyond scoring. And I know that sounds ridiculous because the guy scores goals. He's a brilliant, decisive, cold finisher. But are we at the point where he's a guy you bring on when you need a goal, as opposed to the guy who starts?
I mean, that's a good shout. I think he's a curate's egg of a player, isn't he, really? It's really difficult to sort of work out what he does apart from, as you say, the brilliant knack of scoring goals. But other than that, if he doesn't score goals, I'm not sure what, at the moment, else he does add to the team, But so... Yeah, that might be a good shout. The sort of player that you bring on later on, and again, with those options up front now, that he might find himself marginalised a bit. But who knows? I mean, Frank did try to buy him, didn't it? His previous club, so he must fancy him. But yeah, I think you might be right. I think that might be the case for him.
Now, look, can I just raise something here? Everyone I'm looking at Twitter because we are 6:21. I think the deadline's at 7. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're just under 40 minutes away from that, and I'm checking to see if we bought Mbappe or Bellingham. Doesn't seem as though we have, although of course ITKs, they can surprise you. And I'm also noting that his name is Moani. So you and I, Lee, we need to have words at some point. So let's move on. Sorry, I've completely lost my place. We're going to move on, and we're going to have some Spurs memories now, because we've done the current, we've done the present. Let's do the past a little bit before we get to Kev's scarf incident, Julie talking about stuff to do with useless development kids and so on. And I think, Lee, you want to talk about ITKs, don't you? Is that your?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's your beef. Well, my beef, and we touched on this last week, is Wembley. Now, we were there for, I think, 3 months, and I've got many memories of Wembley, mostly sour, cold memories. It was so cold. I remember going to a match there where I just left with 25 minutes to go because I couldn't bear, I was just freezing, and I went there on my bike. It was a long ride for me, and I just wanted to get back on the bike, get the muck out of there. It was so cold. It was soulless. It was miserable. My abiding memories when I went to get some sweets from the Pick and Mix, which was just outside the entrance where I went in. There's a little trolley of great looking Pick and Mix, and I just filled a bag, a few bits and pieces, some foam shrimps and some foam bananas and a few Razzies and Dazzles and Zazzy, whatever they're called. And I took them to be weighed, and the assistant there said to me, "That's £9.26, please." And I said to him, "Hang on, are you weighing the right bag? Because if I go to my favourite Pick and Mix shop, that's £1.80." So I left the bag where it was, and I thought, this is the summation of everything I detest about Wembley. It's vile, it's expensive, it's ghastly, and it's Kev. So I could go on. Kev, abiding memories of Wembley.
Coldest I've ever been, and I spent a few weeks in Greenland around that time, and Greenland was much warmer and more pleasant than Wembley was. And the one game I most remember, I've been trying to think who we were playing, and I think it was Rochdale, FA Cup match, and I've never been so cold. And it felt like a lot of that was about the design of Wembley, which was basically just tunnels of, just wind and rain just from the outside. It felt like it was designed to bring cold and rain into you as you were watching. And I think we won. we won the match, but I can't really remember the match. It was awful. And then trying to get home, it would actually genuinely have been quicker for me to walk home than to try and move and then come back. Always 2 hours at least.
Incidentally, I think I can add that if it was like an August match or a May match and the sun was belting down on you, you couldn't get away from the heat. I mean, it was just scorching. Julie, any abiding memories of Wembley?
Well, it is, you see, that they knew Wembley. Well, it's not that new now. It just has no might. It gives you no feeling of potential glory, because I can actually remember the old building very well, because of course I spent quite a lot of time there reporting. And that Wembley Way, that sort of feeling you got as you walked up Wembley Way, and you remembered, this is the place where England won the World Cup, where Bobby Moore lifted the Jules Rimet trophy. There was a sort of glory and glamour and splendour about the old Wembley, and it had a really brilliant car park. You could just drive in and leave your car. The loos were terrible, I must say. I mean, I'm told that the gentlemen's toilets were, you just sort of ended up with, the bottom.
Rivers of piss. No doubt
I didn't
about that.
Sort of say anything rude, but but it was a wonderful place. I loved being at Wembley. That you could park, if you were pressed, you could park your car at some sort of fancy raised level. And I can just remember getting out of my car. Now, this would have been the early 1980s. And there was Danny Blanchard just sort of standing there looking over the wall at the scene. And he turned to greet me. And, I thought, I'm alive. I've said hello to Danny Blanchard again. Danny Blanchard is my friend and I'm at Wembley. And the current building is just horrid. You come out of the tube station and it's there before you. And it's just, it's like walking into a shopping mall or something like that. It's just got nothing.
Yeah.
There's no buzz. It's a bastard to get out of. It takes you almost, the length of a match to get out, to leave the place. It's just a disaster. I mean, I had some memories of the matches that we played there when we were exiled there. And there were some great memories, some great matches, some great performances, but it was all spoiled by being in this awful, awful place. I mean, you might as well be watching a match at some generic stadium in the Midlands or something like that. There was no sort of splendour about it at all.
And that's an interesting point you raised there, because of course we beat Real Madrid there 3-1. We beat Borussia Dortmund. That was the Vertonghen match. Leaders, did any of those victories slightly leaven the misery for you of Wembley?
Yeah, I do remember us famously bashing up Arsenal there and Liverpool, and they were nice. But I also remember, like you were talking about, the weather getting absolutely soaked to the skin there. But worst of all, I think, was whenever we did lose, and you came out there, and whatever way you tried to circumnavigate to get to the station as quick as you can, you're always bumping into the opposition fans, and often that would be Chelsea or Arsenal, and it was getting lively at points, very fractious, and the mood coming out of there was much worse than if we lose at where we are now. It could get pretty I mean, I'd seen a few bust ups and dust ups on the way out of there, so that wasn't very pleasant.
I know Julie mentioned walking up Wembley Way. I do remember going up the ramp for, I think it was the Portsmouth semi-final of the FA Cup. We were all the fans were mashed together going up that ramp. And I remember a couple of our brethren, some of our fellow Spurs fans, picked up some horse shit and threw it at the Portsmouth fans. And I just thought, do you know what? There's a moment there where you just think, this does not make me proud. This does not make me proud. Anyway, moving on. Kev, now, you sent me a message to say you wanted to have a little reminisce about the scarf incident, and I put that in, inverted commas. What does this all mean?
Well, I think it means that I'm traumatized still, something like after this happened. And I need to use this group and whoever's listening as therapists, really. I was walking home with two friends back to Edmonton Green from the ground, the old White Hart Lane. We were about 17, 18, something like that. And this guy came up behind us and said to my mate, who had a scarf around, around his neck, "Give me your scarf." And my mate said no. And we turned around. He was on his own. guy. This is when I need therapy. He was on his own. He said, "Give us the scarf," and my mate gave it to him, and we watched as he walked off with my mate. I'm not naming him, with my mate's scarf round his neck, and walked off, and we did nothing at all. And I think some of the thinking was, if you're brave enough to come up to three of us and demand a scarf, then you must be scary, or you must have, armed mates round the corner or something. When I look back, I think, no, he just saw that we were going to let him do it. I know one of the people who does this regularly was the other person, not the person with the scarf, was the other one. So he probably won't thank me for bringing this up, because he was also part of this sort of horribly cowardly response to having a scarf. I'd like to think Palmer did something, and that scarf brought him harm. But that was it. That was it. I do feel better already. So.
Well, you see, there we are. That's what we're here for. I mean, he would look, with any luck, he put that scarf on, tied a knot in it, got it caught on a railing, and strangled himself. If you think in those terms, you'll feel so much better about that incident. Lee, I know you want to have a little rant about ITK idiots and the idiots who believe them. I mean, I rant about ITKs all the time. I've blocked every one of them, and they still come back. Tell me about ITK.
Well, I've got to the point where I've actually just written something down about this now, because it's getting right on my tits. So it goes a bit like this. You know what really does my head in? People on socials, on X, who lose their arses over transfers. Every window, it's the same story. Some random account with a cartoon avatar says, breaking news, Mbappe to Spurs, deal close. And within 10 minutes, fans are creating AI images with Mbappe in a Spurs shirt, writing the starting 11s and tweeting the league's not ready and planning on the sort of trophy parade already. then guess what? It doesn't happen. And what do? They just lose their minds. The board is useless. Stevie's a bald bastard. That kind of thing. We've been let down. We've been let down again. No, mate. You've let yourself down, by believing a rumour that Dave wrote in his bedroom. Is it a coincidence that it's the school holidays? No. Look, clubs don't owe you a sign-in just because you read it on a tweet, getting angry because of some BS ITK that you choose to believe in. Is like sulking when your mum doesn't buy you what you want. It's childish. Stop it. Honestly, take it with a shovel of salt and wait for the club announcement. Everything else is just noise.
Do you know what? That was so good. It got a round of applause from Julie. And you're absolutely bang on. You mentioned something about people putting their dream team up, where they put all the players' faces and the bits and pieces, and you think, who beats this team? Well, because this fucking team doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's no to, and then there's the player coming that player says no.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You have ripped the ITKs apart in fine fashion. Let's move on, Julie. I know you wanted to have a little talk about the academy successes or lack of them. Spurs, are they doing something wrong?
Well, I'd be curious, really, because, Arsenal have come up with this amazing, 12-year-old who is obviously absolutely fantastic. They've got, I can't pronounce the guy's name. He's one of their academy products who is also probably about, 15. Last season, when we played, I think it was Elfsborg, in the last knockings of the Europa League group stage, because we were so short of senior players and had to play the kids, and they all scored. Ajeo, Moore and Scarlett, I think. And I keep thinking, what has happened to them? I mean, Mikey Moore has now been sent to live on a farm when your dog's died, and you tell the kids he's gone to live on a farm. And Mikey Moore's gone to Rangers, which is not the right place for him. He was meant to be the next big thing. He was meant to be our Harry Kane for this decade. Just what's happened to our academy players? The last one that I can remember actually sort of making it into the Premier League for a limited amount of time and, success was Ollie Skip, really nice player. Harry Winks, again, really nice player, but, not major by any means. And soon they found their way to sort of slightly, in quotes, lesser clubs than Spurs. What is it about our academy? Do we just not sort of, pay the parents enough money to, when the kids are 8, to sign them up to us for life. Whereas Arsenal, as ever, do it so bloody efficiently. I'm so envious.
Well, the kid you're talking about, Dowman, he's 15, who looks ridiculously good. It doesn't mean he'll turn into a great player, when he grows up. I can think of only really Kane and Ledley in recent years who have come through. I remember talking to you about Mikey Moore. I've been watching Mikey Moore, little bits of video of him in the academy, and you think, God, this kid is just ridiculous. And yet he had a couple of moments really playing for the first team, and now he's getting absolutely slaughtered by Rangers fans for not being Mbappe, and they want to go back to Spurs. Is he going to come again? Have we got any other? I know we've got this Barnett Williams, or is it Williams Barnett? One of those, who looks like a genius, but who knows? Is it just the nature of kids that they just don't always fulfil their promise?
I think maybe, as I was just thinking about Harry Kane, and he was on loan at Orient, and someone I worked with saw him a few times at Orient and said he didn't stand out. He didn't look particularly great. He didn't look terrible, but he didn't look particularly great at that time. I'm not sure how old he was. And I think so much of it is do they go to the right club at the right time? Is there, do they fit into team? Do they fit into whatever the sort of milieu is at that club? I'm sure we've lost some good players. Mikey Moore, if he'd gone somewhere other than Rangers, hopefully he will, could still make it. Dane Scarlett was at Oxford last year?
Yeah.
And I
think so, yeah.
They didn't think that much of him. At the moment, they're saying they've got Lancashire, who they seem to really like, and he seems to be fitting in where, Dane Scarlett didn't. I don't know. Who knows which of those two is going to do better, if either of them are going to be particularly good. I think so much is luck. But it also might be that I was reading about Simons, and Barcelona picked him up when he was 7 years old. And I don't know, whether that would be typical in this country or not. How do you spot someone at 7 and think this guy is going to be a great footballer? It's a very special skill to actually pick that person out, I think. But I don't know. I don't know.
It's interesting because sorry, go on.
No, that's it. I'm not sure whether we're worse than Arsenal, or does Arsenal have had a bit of luck with, I don't know.
It's interesting. I used to be, hard to believe looking at me, but I was a county level junior tennis player. And a lot of the kids I played against, much better than me, number 1 in England. I played the number 1 in England under 16 player when I was 21, and he beat me. Of course he did, but never heard of again. And I don't think anybody that I played with in those years, though they're all the top juniors, I don't think any of them came through to do anything, apart from John Burko, who didn't really excel at anything, certainly not at tennis, but whether he was an excellent speaker of the House, I don't know.
He was a right, didn't he?
Obnoxious little prick, he really was. Anyway, that's by the by. I don't want to get sued. Lee, is this something that, we always look to our one of our own, don't we? We like the idea of one of our own coming through and doing something, but they're very hard to find and to develop.
Yeah, I just have a theory, and this is partly, I think, based on observation. When you look at the really successful clubs, they have a really successful team, and because of that, you can bring some of those younger players in, like some of those clubs have done at 15, 16, and therefore they're in a functioning team that are of an elite level, that are very, very good. And therefore the other players around them protect them and bring them through, and they can come on for 20 minutes or so and not look out of depth, because that team, quite frankly, even the 10 of them could beat the other team. We don't quite have that. We've not quite yet got the foundations, that strength in depth, where we can afford to take that gamble, which is such a shame, because we do have a lot of incredibly talented younger players, but we don't have an incredibly strong first team to allow that platform. That's my theory. I don't know whether anyone else believes the similar thing, or...
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, Julie. Is that fair that we just don't have enough kind of basic foundation for kids to flourish and to learn and then flourish?
Yeah, I think Lee's absolutely spot on. There's been so much sort of turmoil and change at the club since Pochettino left. I don't think Conte was terribly interested in giving a kid a chance. The team has never really completely been a settled team since Pochettino left. I think everything that you said, Lee, is absolutely right. I wish it had only sort of occurred to me, and then I could have looked the clever one. But it's true, and we have had some really talented youngsters. I mean, our results in the under-18s, the under-21s, have been sort of really amazing, and it's really sad that at the moment there doesn't seem to be much of a follow-on. I mean, Jamie Donnelly, for instance. Players like that, so good. And yet, here we are at the end, in 15 minutes' time, the end of another transfer window, sort of bringing in talent from outside. Maybe that's where the game is going. I don't know. But, Liverpool seem to develop some reasonably talented youngsters of their own. Although I think at the moment, they've just probably bought every really good player in the Premier League.
They're buying the world, aren't they? It's incidentally, just as we speak, I've just checked on my timeline, and a guy with 308 followers has said Tottenham are pushing for a last-second inquiry with Atalanta for Ademola Lookman. So I think we can safely consign that to the bullshit category bin. All right, so
I'd believe it if we were advancing. I'd believe it then.
Yeah, we are advancing. Now then, so let's move on swiftly. It's random rant time. Kev, you got anything that really needs a bit of a yell and a bellow right now? You always look perplexed when I do this with you every week. Why are you asking me for a rant?
I think that's because I do spend much of my time ranting about different things. And then when I have to one, I'm never quite sure which one to choose. This one is just because I watched what I believe is the worst film ever made at the weekend, which is Thursday, what's it called? Thursday Murder Club, based on a Richard Osman book. It was awful, awful. It had some great actors who managed to spend their time trying to persuade you that actually they weren't great, and how did they ever get where they got to. It was appallingly directed. It was sluggish and slow and awful. And I suppose my rant isn't just about that film, but I would say, please don't ever watch. Anyone listening to this, don't spend money. Don't watch it for free. Just don't watch it. It's about British film, really. So many bad British films. And there's something they have, which is this sort of, we're being a little parodic of Britishness and there's a sort of laziness. Most of them, I'm surprised this one didn't have Olivia Colman in. Most of them have Olivia Colman in. She wasn't in this. She should have been. I think it is laziness. I think that's the word. There's a sort of laziness about British films. And that's it. I'm not going to go any further. That's my British film.
It's a very decent rant. And by the way, I watched 4 minutes of the Thursday Murder Club, and it was 4 minutes I will never get back. Lee, now look, we've got our very own film star with us today, Lee Brown. Slice and Dice, am I right? Is that your current film out and available on Amazon? It's available on Amazon. Lee,
it's I'm afraid of Aya now. But to be fair, we make no bones about the film. It is actually, a very micro budget is what it's called. The guy I know who's the producer of it, made it on a shoestring, and we've tried to sort of make it, the best it can be. But it's in this day and age where things are just incredibly hard to get made unless you are, Daniel Mays or, Olivia Colman, who seem to get everything, and those same actors get the same stuff. The rest of us are kind of like trying to make stuff happen, and often that's personal expense, trying to get it made, and sometimes that's held against you because you're they expect it to measure up to a £10 million film. But what they've done with it, I think it's brave and really interesting. But I've got another one also coming out in October.
Come on, film star. Come on,
yeah,
what have you
got? It's called Borley Rectory: The Awakening. It's apparently based upon a true ghost story. It stars Patsy Kensit, Julian Glover. Julian
Wow.
Glover, some of you might remember from Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I play this really horrible priest, and one part of it I meant to have been burnt badly, so I was like a half a day in makeup for this thing. It's dreadful. But they've demonized my voice in it and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know why I seem to be getting the bad guys at the moment. And
yeah, you weren't very nice in Slice and Dice. Let's be honest.
No,
yeah, right. Nasty piece of work. Have you got a rant for us?
Well, it really was the kind of ITK thing, really. So I've probably gone a bit early on that. But
you've gone early.
Yeah, but I did have another point that, which is kind of segues, I suppose, off what we were talking about earlier, is that I feel like we've kind of gone arse about face in terms of the development of the team. We've gone like, put all the younger players in first, and now trying to retrofit all the, first teamers in after that. And we really, like most, elite teams do it the other way around. You get the first team functioning and the best team players in place, and then you supplement them with, really good up and coming players that you can then, bring through. But I fear that what we've done is inadvertently, while we've been sort of looking at this strategy of bringing younger players through, is inadvertently put a lot of pressure on those players, because now they are, of course, they're seen as the future. But if that doesn't happen, then it's all a big cock up.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, clearly there's a lot of talent there, but we should maybe have had the sort of, the core of a really good team first and then done that. But, who am I? I'm not the strategist behind this. Perhaps they do know better than us.
You did mention elite teams, and maybe we're not. So that's a possibility. Julie, what have you got a rant for this week?
I have no rant. I would really like to talk about, well, shall we say our founder, Cyril Knowles.
The great Cyril Knowles, who died on the 30th of August in 1991. Tell us about Cyril.
Well, I did a bit of homework on him, obviously, because that's what I do. So he arrived in 1964 as a 19-year-old, and he was a replacement for the great left-back Ron Henry. Cost 45,000 quid, came from Middlesbrough. And it was a very significant season, the 64-65 season, because it was the season that followed the death of John White. And it was also, they also lost temporarily Dave Mackay, who had come back after he'd broken his leg, only for him to break it again in a reserve game at Shrewsbury. And at the same time, Danny Blanchflower was, he was just on his last legs, basically. Cyril came into a kind of team that was changing a bit, but his strength, his crossing ability was really good. I mean, you'd love him today. I mean, fantastic, very good at set pieces, really smartly dressed guy, really looked like what a Tottenham Hotspur player ought to look like, really sort of fashionable in his sort of Yorkshire way. So, and he was joined a year later, of course, by Joe Kinnear at right back. And so they were both in the vanguard of the overlapping fullbacks. And he was part of the 1967 FA Cup winning side. But the best story about him, we move on a bit to 1975. Bill Nicholson had gone and Terry Neal was our manager then. And Spurs were in danger of relegation. And it came to practically the last day of the season. They had to beat Leeds United to avoid the drop. And so Terry Neal hired a hypnotist. This hypnotist was called Romark, and his main claim to fame was that he'd put a curse on Crystal Palace after Malcolm Allison hadn't paid him for trying to get Palace out of the third division. So Romark put Cyril Knowles in a trance and told him he was a rod of iron. And the next day, Cyril fired Spurs into the lead, and later he scored another in their 4-2 win over Leeds, which, by the way, and that is the famous game where Alfie Conn sat on the ball. And there's another nice fact about Cyril, the Terrace song, Nice One, Cyril. That was actually, well, it was recorded by the Cockerel Chorus eventually. Nice One, Cyril, let's have another one. And it got number 14 in the UK charts in 1973. But the phrase was originally part of an ad campaign for Wonderloaf bread. So how about that? Sad thing is that, well, actually, Cyril's story has actually got quite a sad ending because he lost his son in a freak car accident when a stone was a stone flew up from the road and crashed through his windscreen and hit his little lad on the head and killed him. And also, he died very young. He was, I think, 49. He was managing Hartlepool at the time. He had a brain tumour. I was operated on, but never recovered from it, or didn't recover from it properly. I really hate to sort of end his story like that, because he was a lovely bloke, fantastic player, and that lovely song and that great anecdote about Romark. That's what I prefer to remember.
He was a lovely player. I remember him very well, and he glided across the turf. He had that very sort of unfussy movement about him, his lovely touch, lovely control, as you say, good crosser of the ball. And didn't he have a funny brother who played, I can't remember his name, Peter Knowles, was it?
Yes, it was Peter Knowles.
Do you remember Peter Knowles?
Didn't he get God, or was that somebody else's brother? I think
he did. I think he became a Jehovah's Witness at 23. Kev, do you remember him at all?
It's all coming back.
Yeah. I can't hear Kev. I think Kev's... We've lost your sound. Oh, there you are.
I think I mentioned my dad. My dad was a Charlton fan.
Yeah.
And I think we were sort of his second team, but basically he took me to Tottenham and would rather have taken me to Charlton, but felt he had no choice. I didn't give him any choice, really. And he had two players that he really, really respected, and one was Jimmy Greaves and one was Cyril Knowles. And I've spent the day trying to think, what did he say about Cyril Knowles? And I think it was just, he saw him as this professional, that he was like decent. You could trust him. He wasn't a George Best or a Charlie George or whoever. Do you know what I mean? So from my dad's point of view, the person that basically I should grow up to be, I think I should grow up to be a Cyril Knowles and be a sort of decent person. I'm not sure. I think I've grown up to be somewhere between Cyril Knowles and Charlie George sometimes.
I was going to say, as long as you're not between Cyril Knowles and Peter Knowles, and you're okay. It was interesting because Peter Knowles was a very sort of flashy, young, cocky, long-haired kid who played for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and he was on the verge of the England team, and then he just stopped playing. Some Jehovah's Witnesses came to his house and talked him into it, and he just stopped playing, and that was it. He devoted himself to the cause. Okay, look, I tell you what, we're getting towards the end of the show. We don't have a lot more time, so I just want to have a quick word about England. So we've got an international break on its way. And Lee, look, Jordan Henderson's still in that squad. I despair. Do we give a shit about England anymore?
I couldn't give a flying fuck. No. Do you know what? I mean, when it comes to the international competitions, I'm all over it, but I won't make any particular effort unless I'm in and nothing else is on, or there's no paint to watch dry. Then I'll put the England game on. But yeah, it's just it's never that interesting, is it? And these days there aren't many Tottenham players playing for England either. No. So yeah, and for me, it's never also a welcome break. Even if if our form's not great, I want us to start again to get the form better. And if it is good, which it never is before an international break anyway.
No,
but I can't stand the international breaks. They just bore me to bloody tears.
They are boring. I mean, I'm quite keen to see Jed Spence get a game and do his stuff, because we know how good he's been for us. There's a bit of me that enjoys the break, or used to enjoy the England breaks when we had Glenn Hoddle playing, because I used to think, go on, Glenn, show them what we all know about you. You were the best player, just this exquisite footballer, and yet he struggled to do it with England, mostly because he was played out of position and mucked around and told to go tackling instead of doing his thing. And then Terry McDermott were getting in front of him, or Ray Wilkins.
Oh, I'm totally an England fan, and it's it's like it's my only chance to see Harry Kane these days. And when I see Harry Kane in his England shirt, I just think, there's Harry Kane of Tottenham Hotspur. I love the internationals. I mean, I even sort of watch Wales, I watch Scotland, Northern Ireland here. I have no complaints at all. And it's a total relief from the stress of following Tottenham.
Correct. Kev, England fan, England follower, or couldn't care less?
And I'm one of those people, I've realised that I'm sneery sneery about people who only watch football when there's a World Cup or a European Championship on. I always think you're not really a football fan. But then I realised that that's the only time I watch England, really, or watch England with any sense of commitment or passion. So, yeah, so I find some interest then. But no, they're way, way below Tottenham, and, you know. It's never gone at all for me.
It's hard to get excited about, England playing Andorra or some obscure team from Eastern Europe or something like that. It is quite hard. But when you get round to tournaments, I'm committed. I want to see us do well, but I don't want to see Jordan Henderson. All right, look, I've made my point. Thank you. We're done. Thank you to Kevin Acott, of course, to Julie Welch and Lee Brown. Thank you all for your fantastic contributions to today's Nice One, Cyril. We will be back next week with lots more stuff, so do join us then. Until then, bye-bye.
Nice one, Cyril.